And I always used to say you have a target on your back. But the target's a lot smaller when you're a newer referee. So I would say referee the most high-level, craziest games you can. Referee those games without the fear, because you'll learn those things. You'll learn things on those games.
Hello and welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show that gives you a real, raw, and behind-the-scenes view of one of the hardest jobs on the pitch, the referee. I'm your host, David Gerson, a grassroots referee and certified mentor with over 10 years of experience and over 1,300 matches under my belt. You can find me at refsneedlove2.com, on Instagram, TikTok, and now YouTube. Today, we are going to be interviewing a very special friend of the pod, Mr. Leland Grant. Leland has been a referee since 1997. People, that's when I graduated college. He began his career in Virginia, and he has refereed at all levels of the U.S. sports, youth soccer events, appearing at DA Showcase when DA was a thing. He was at Youth Nationals twice. That is no joke. From 2012 to 2019, Leland was a grade 3 national referee with U.S. soccer and worked games in the USL all over the country, as well as tournaments like Nationals, the Hank Steinbrenner Cup, and many semi-pro matches in various leagues. During the fall college season, he was selected 3 times to the NCAA Final Four. 3 different times. That's crazy. During his years as a national referee, he also ran the Tennessee Academy, where many referees have graduated, are now working MLS and FIFA matches. Crazy. Most recently in 2020, he retired as a national referee and became a national coach for U.S. Soccer, currently residing in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome, Leland.
Hey, David. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, it is such my pleasure. I feel like this conversation has been a long time coming.
Absolutely. It's funny hearing all that list of things. I'm in my head. I'm going back to all of those places. It's wow.
It's amazing. I mean, 18 years, and certainly it's an extensive career. But let's talk about. I mean, you got your national referee badge. You became a national referee coach. So this, I mean, you are someone who is invested, engaged, and passionate about it. But how did you start? I mean, what got you into officiating?
Well, I was playing when I was younger, and youth rec leagues. There were refs out there, obviously, and at some point I heard, oh, they get paid? So that was it. I mean, and that story is very similar to many friends of mine who ref at, top levels. It's like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I needed to make money. But what a great way to make money. Reffing tournaments and leaving with a check for the weekend after doing 12 games. It was outstanding and created some really long-lasting friendships, people I'm still friends with today that I've known since 1997, 98 when I got going. It's incredible. What a ride it's been.
Absolutely. I was just talking to a coach yesterday on the sideline post-match, and he's a former referee, and he encourages all of his players to become referees, not only because it's money, which is nice, you need to have that, it makes you self-sufficient early on in life, but it teaches the kids wind up being better players. They wound up understanding the game more from a whole different perspective, seeing the game in a different way, and they will become better players because of it. So I think it's so valuable. It's really cool. As a national coach for U.S. Soccer, what do you see as the most important qualities in a top-level referee? Can you give us a little perspective of that? So, like, as a coach, what are you looking for in the top referees, and how do people go about developing those skills?
I mean, there's a lot you could list, but to really break it down into main groups, I would say I'm looking at referees, and this is for referees who want to move forward, because it doesn't there's referees that are good referees and referees that want to learn and develop and be better, and then there's referees that go, oh man, I want a FIFA badge. It's definitely a question I ask, like before the game. I'll say, hey, so tell me about yourself. What are you trying to do? What are your goals? And that actually is super helpful when I'm giving a debrief or thinking, how do I approach this, a coaching assessment, if you will, with this referee and with this referee crew. Because if it's a referee saying, hey, I want to be a national referee, I want to work pro games, I want to work MLS, then that obviously puts a different lens on the type of feedback I might give. So that said, broad strokes would be I'm looking at referees who, one, have the referee lifestyle. So they are fit. They're exercising not just on the field. We say you can't referee as you're training. You need to train to referee, right? There's obviously things that go along with that. Are you getting enough rest? Are you working out in a gym? Are you hydrating? Is your diet on point? Again, that's this lifestyle that it requires. And something else is on the field as we're refereeing, but then as we're talking about the game, are you a student of the game? Are you aware of what's happening in soccer? Are you aware of decisions that happen in other leagues across the world, not because they necessarily apply to your games, but because they become part of that conversation, especially now as we see things moving towards like the laws are changing to where we ask a lot of times the question, what does soccer expect? And that helps a lot if you're a student of the game, because if there's a big decision in a match, it can affect what's expected at the lowest levels. So I think those two things are really key. Are you a student of the game, and is refereeing your lifestyle? Now, again, if refereeing's just a hobby, that's fine. We need referees, and we need referees who love it and just want to be out there and have fun and make money. That's awesome. But that changes my perspective as a national coach. I might say, hey, really good. How'd you feel about the game? Great. I might have some follow-up questions, but they won't be necessarily the type of direct feedback on maybe a really specific issue or something. Or if it's a referee I've seen before, I can go, hey, last time I saw you, we were talking about this in this game. How did those things we talked about work for you or not work for you? So again, those are broad strokes.
Yeah, it's cool. I do want to ask you a little bit more about the look of a referee, and seriously, and what the presence of a referee on the pitch to make it to that next level, to go to the professional level, because that's the type of people you're coaching. There could very well be the type of people you're coaching at nationals as a national coach, or these high-level events, want to go become a professional or want to get a FIFA badge at some point in time in their career. So, I mean, it's very interesting because we see more diversity in our referees than we've ever seen before. I mean, again, you're seeing, referees, female referees. We're seeing referees of different ethnicities. So it's not a question of a certain look. You have to look a certain part, but beyond like the actual specific, of a certain, look that we would normally think of a referee, what are the qualities that we're looking for in terms of the presence of the referee on the pitch? What do they need to have to be seen as a professional referee that can make it to the next level?
Well, there used to be a term we used called command presence, and I would use a different word now. We can't say that, but confidence. It's so key. And confidence starts, if I'm a coach and I'm going out to field 12 to watch this game that happens at 3:00, I'm going to be there at 2:30, 2:45 at the latest. And I want to see the crew arrive. I want to see how they arrive. Are they walking together? Are they talking? Or are they on their phone? Are they texting? I want to watch them warm up. And I want to see when they arrive, if I look at the crew and go, man, I have confidence in this group of referees. You mentioned diversity. I mean, we can maybe talk about that a little later, but honestly, that doesn't even really come into the equation for my mind. It's how you walk. It's how you present yourself. Is your jersey clean? I'm not talking about starched and ironed, but do you have mud on the back of it from the day before when it was raining? How do you walk? Are your shoulders back? Do you walk and exude, I'm confident in my ability to officiate this game? And that, it's not just as a coach. You've got 1,200 or however many thousands of games. When you walk onto the field in that mindset of, man, I'm going to knock this game out of the park, that sort of exudes this aura, to use a zeitgeist term, that everybody else sees. When the crew warms up together, the players look and they go, "Oh man, okay." And I think it's more subconscious. I don't think the players going, "Hey, look, Jimmy," at the refs. But I think they're noticing. It's just like a notice of like, "Oh man, the refs warmed up." It's almost it's subconscious. It's non-spoken. The coaches are looking at the crew and going, "Man, they walked together. Man, they all showed up in a black warm-ups." And then they all, got into their game uniform or they all warmed up in a black warm-up shirt. And then they came after the warm-up, then they put on their jersey. That's something small that players do. Players rarely, I realize at rec level and stuff like that, players are all going to warm up their jersey. But something a referee can do that's kind of subtle, but sort of a big statement is you show up in a tracksuit, unless it's really warm outside, in which case I'd wear a tracksuit top. I know we're getting specific here, but get to the field, crew arrives, you're going to do your warm-up. You go down to warm-ups, which is your socks are pulled up, ref socks. You have your OSI shorts on. You've got a warm-up top. Everybody's probably in a black warm-up top. You warm up. Before you do the coin toss, captains, all that stuff, then you throw on your jersey. It's a very subtle thing that just says, I've been here before and I'm an athlete, because that's what the players do. So maybe a way to say this more concisely is when the referee shows up with confidence, is their pregame similar to the players? Are they warming up like athletes?
Yeah, I don't know. I 1,000% agree. I've had coaches who I've never met before. Well, literally, I'll hear them say, "Oh, we've got a professional today because I'm doing a proper warm-up pre-match. And I'm dressed exactly as you said. I've got my black warm-up on. I know my jersey on. And I'm going through a warm-up just same way the players would be going through a warm-up to get ready for the match." It really does. It sets the bar, high. I would say as
it's
a referee,
like the first foul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like the first foul in a game.
Yeah.
The first foul, you need to pick the right foul.
Right.
It can't be something ticky-tack. It needs to be, oh, that's a foul. That's where we're saying this is not okay. Same thing with the first caution, right? It's got to make a statement.
Yes.
So with everything you do, are you making a statement of confidence, which instills ultimately trust from the teams, from the benches, from the spectators?
Yeah.
And that way, when you instill that trust from 30 minutes prior to the match or whenever you get there, an hour before the game, I don't know. When you instill that trust, that way, when we do miss a decision, which we all will, probably in most games, we miss decisions. It can be a big one. It can be a little one. Hopefully it's a little one. But when we do miss a decision, you're starting at a 10. So you miss a decision, you're not down to a 0. And they might go, okay, better luck next time. It just starts as you arrived at the field. And as you move up, it starts before the game. It starts a few days out when you're emailing with the referee crew and saying, hey guys, what time are we going to get there? Hey, here's my pregame notes. Hey, I watched these teams. I know that's not really happening at grassroots youth level, but it's starting to, because all of these games are on video. So you can usually access stats on a team and know who's who. So again, the more research you can do prior to a game, again, it's going to up your level of confidence as you arrive to the field. I
love that. Now, can we talk about one thing, and I'm sorry to keep on belaboring this point, but I think it's so interesting. We talk about, you mentioned the term, you don't use it anymore, but it used to be this command presence. And so it feels like, again, everyone loves to, romanticize Kalina, back in the day as this unbelievably aggressive presence. We don't really see that anymore. And again, he was a very unique individual, in a very unique time in the game. What is it that, if it's not command presence, like what are we looking for at a referee to be confident, but also be approachable and be able to communicate? How do you describe that? What words do you use when you're trying to work with a referee to not be so commanding that they literally are off-putting and they literally can't have dialogue? It's their way or the highway, and no one likes to see that. How do you talk about that?
Sure. So Kalina is a great example. And I mean, there are pictures of him that are aggressive.
Yes.
There's some famous clips where there's one where he's sort of pushing a player away, but you can, the player's body language, he's matching it. Referees have to be great at making tough decisions confidently. And that, again, coming back to that word confidence or as you said, command presence, it can't be understated. Actually, it can't be overstated rather, that a referee makes a tough decision and they're selling that decision with their body language, the way they point their arm, the whistle tone, their position. You have to sell the call. So that, I think we all maybe know is a little obvious, but the more important thing is what you asked is, how do they not stay like this all the time? You have to be approachable. You need to learn to act, and you need to work on your body language and facial expressions. So even though I might look angry, if I give that player that sort of, we call it the mom look of like, you better stop. In my head, as I'm giving this look to a player, I'm saying, you better not do that again, or you're going to your room. But I'm thinking that, right? And I might look angry, but inside we have to control our emotions and not be angry. That's because a player could go, ref, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. My bad. I know I did it. And you can go, hey, come here. It's fine. Listen. But if I don't, administer this yellow card, I'm going to look like I don't care. So you got to take the yellow now. But understand that I understand what you said to me. Whatever it is, these little conversations you have, but they don't have to be words. Can be body language. A referee who can work at different levels is good at adjusting when the situation changes. So big decision, hard foul. Maybe we don't need to come down off level 10 of, hey, I'm showing you guys that this is where the line is. But soft foul, we can take things a little more casually. But being able to adjust in real time and realize also that there's 22 players on the field. So different players have different personalities, and you have to manage each player differently. We all know how goalkeepers can be. I think there's sort of these, right, you're laughing because it's these sort of stereotypes.
I'm a goalkeeper, so yeah.
I see the gloves behind you.
That's right.
So stereotypically, goalkeepers are crazy, right? But they're putting their life on the line, diving to save the ball from going in the net. They kind of have to be. Numbers 9 and 11, right? You're two up top. Those players typically will be a little different than your holding midfielder or your number 10. So very quickly learning at the beginning of the game or talking to referees who've had the teams in the past or studying film. I know, again, that's tougher at the grassroots level when you start. But talking to other referees, hey, have you had this team before? Who is the person that is not going to be my friend? And then who's the person that's going to be my friend? That's key. But again, you have to adjust your personality in those different situations. Because sometimes that person who you think has been your friend the whole game, in the 85th minute, you have a big decision and you're out of position. And you might have got it right, but you don't have the best angle. That person's going to come to you, and now you've for 85 minutes, you've opened a conversation door because y'all have been cool. But now things aren't going to be cool. So when you can anticipate those interactions and almost set up or in your head have words, I call it a toolbox, have like these phrases that you use, that you're ready to use, and you can anticipate like, oh man, they're going to come up and I bet this is what they're going to say to me. So almost having a comeback or retort prior to the interaction, that can be helpful too.
One thing I want to ask you, so when you're having conversations with these referees who want to move up and you're doing your post-match coaching, I don't want to call it an assessment anymore. We don't call it an
debrief, whatever you call it. Yeah.
How critical is it that the referee can cite the considerations or the specific laws of the game for you? If they're one of these who wants to be a pro and
very critical. It is. It's everything. Okay, so for example, you have a dog show decision, and I ask you about it after the game, and I say, "Hey, tell me about the decision." And I'm usually a little non-specific because I'd like to see if they're keying into what I'm saying. So let's say the decision happened in the 44th minute, which is even a bigger decision for potential dog show, maybe red card, maybe penalty, going into halftime, right? So I might say, hey, just before halftime, what happened on the field? What was the call you made? And if they look at me like a deer in the headlights, I'm thinking as a coach, I'm like, okay, but I'll give them, let's go another try. Hey, tell me about the foul the one you called outside the penalty area. The key, what you're saying is, the answer to your question is, they might say, oh, I gave a yellow card because I considered dog so. However, I had a defender there back to cover. So for me, the 4Ds weren't met. I will say, great. And realistically, unless there's video evidence that is to the contrary, I'm going with the referee as a coach. I'm going to support this official because most likely they're in a better position than me. Now, again, I might say, hey, I need to look at the video before we discuss this. And if the game was on video, we might have like a short debrief at the field, but go, hey, let's do a Zoom call next week. We'll look at some video clips. Once again, if it's a 50-50 decision and the referee's saying, hey, listen, I had, direction, I had distance, I had possession or potential for control of the ball, but I didn't have the defender component, I'm going to look to support that referee as well. I think that's a big thing. As a coach, I think I speak for many coaches, we are not trying to find a thing and go, oh, well, it could have been a red card and you missed it. We're not trying to do that. I wouldn't want that as a coach when I was a referee. Or from a coach when I was a referee. So it's citing those considerations and it's knowledge of them and the laws, of course. That goes without saying. Those are the conversations we have in the debrief. And if I have a referee that gives a decision, let's say a challenge, and I say, hey, tell me what you had on that challenge when you gave a yellow card right towards the end of the game over near the blue team bench. Again, just a little bit of a ambiguous lead in, just so the referee's driving the conversation. And that said, too, as referees on the come up, look to drive the conversation in these debriefs. As a coach, I can ramble, as anyone who knows me knows that about me, but I don't want to be doing that in the debrief. It's my job to foster this conversation where I say, hey, tell me about this decision. And ideally, the ref and the ARs in the fourth are going, well, I saw this, da-da-da. Oh, what'd you do? Oh, I didn't know that. And then you came over and then you said that. And I'm just listening to what happened. And then at the end, I might go, so tell me about your considerations for why you gave yellow card there. And if they go, well, he just got him. Or she just slid in and, it was in the back of her legs. I'm going, okay, tell me a little more about it. What was and I might use a phrase, right. What's the point of contact? And they go, well, what do you mean? I'm going, well, what hit what? Oh, okay, well, they hit them in the stud, with the stud, sorry, or in the stud, sure. With the, and then where I would say, where did they get them? Oh, well, they got them in the back of their heel, and I would go kind of Achilles. And I'd say, yeah, so, okay. So you said they hit them with their cleat in the back of the Achilles. And now we're talking about, obviously, the difference between maybe a yellow and a red card. But ideally, it all comes from the ref crew. So the more you can be up on considerations, laws of the game, and, more you can memorize what happened in that moment and the snapshot that occurred. Because, again, if your AR1 and this foul that happened in front of the blue bench is maybe an orange, yellow, and a red card, and your AR1, you're standing right there, it can be great to call the referee over and go, hey, here's what I saw, just so you know.
Yeah.
And if you give consideration language, then in the debrief, that's coming out. And we're saying, I might ask, hey, what did you go over and talk to Sam about? And she might say, oh, here's what Sam told me. So anyway, when all of this is done with language within the laws and within the considerations, that's the help to render a decision that's usually correct.
Yeah, I just have to say, it is a massive differentiator for me, the referees who can speak in terms of the considerations, actually list them out, than ones who just kind of talk, excuse my expression, but out of their ass. Because I've met a number of referees who have refereed for a very long time and think of themselves as very high-level referees, but then you ask them about a certain challenge and they just use kind of made-up terms or made-up considerations based on their experience. And that's a big one for me. So that goes back to what I said earlier about one of these key factors, which is not the refereeing lifestyle, but it's more the student of the game. And are you reading these things and are you up to date on these things? Because the considerations when they first came out, as you'll remember, was this massive 7-page document with, all these things about stopping a promising attack, dog so. Now there's a condensed consideration. So anyway, are you aware of these things? And as a coach, again, if I'm asking you questions, you're going, well, in the recent condensed considerations I saw, I'm going, oh, wow, this referee is,
Like, maybe they made a mistake, but that's not the point. We're all going to make mistakes. The point is, are you trying off the field to put that knowledge in your head that's going to help you on the field? And again, we're pulling for you. I'm pulling for you as a coach. And I mean, missing a decision, getting a missed KMI, CMI, that's fine. It happens to me all the time. But it's about being a student of the game. And like you said, that language is so important.
Yeah. Excellent. I do have a question for you, and this one comes to me 2 or 3 times every single week of my life. I get referees who are, teenagers or maybe early 20s, and they want to know how to climb the officiating ladder. They're currently grassroots today. They eventually want to be regional. What are the key areas they should focus on for growth, and what things should they be doing to get those opportunities for growth?
I would say one thing that everyone, even at the highest levels, has that is moving up, on their way up, and at the top is find a mentor. And a mentor doesn't have to be someone who's done it all. I mean, maybe a mentor, I could say sort of ideally they'd be at a higher level than you. So if you want to be regional, maybe you find a regional referee that you connect with on a friend level and somebody you feel like you could call after a tough game and say, hey, this happened to me. So a mentor is a big component of that. And if you look at referees who are working at the upper levels in, maybe in podcasts, they'll say, oh, I owe credit to a few people because they helped me on my way up. And they'll still be there for them now. That said, so mentor, that's somebody you referee with, that's somebody you meet through refereeing, that's somebody you might meet at a clinic, and maybe it's the speaker and they're from your state and you haven't met them before, but they gave a good talk, you liked their angle on the game, and you can go up to them after the clinic and go, hey, I'm so-and-so, I want to move up, I just don't know how. Referees are in general all trying to help each other. So ask someone for help, ask to find a mentor, and ask someone formally, hey, would you be my mentor? For the next couple years, I'm just having trouble knowing what to do. That said, I would say try and work with referees who you go out and I guess if you thought like, man, what referee do I really admire? And is there a referee in your local area or a referee you see a lot that you're like, man, forgive my French, like you said, that person's a badass. I want to be like them. I want to be like him. I want to be like her. Go talk to that person. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I just think you're a good ref, and I wonder if you could help me. I'm trying to move up. That's the start of this conversation. There's all these things. I know I talked initially, student of the game, lifestyle. So again, a mentor can help you and you go, well, what are the things I need to work on? And they might go, well, what are you doing for training? Oh, I just ref. Okay, well, why don't you come run with me? It can be a lifelong friendship. Ideally it is. Even if you surpass them. It was funny because many referees who came through the academy here in Tennessee have wildly surpassed the level I got to, which is really rewarding for me as a mentor. And that said, so those are the mentor side of things. The other thing referees can do who are trying to move up is control the controllables, which I think everybody's hopefully heard. If they've listened to your podcast, I'm sure you've said it a million times. I have not gotten through every episode yet, but control the controllables. So what are those things? Be on time, look the part, warm up before a game, debrief with your crew. A big thing is debriefing and then asking for feedback, because even if a coach isn't on your game, before you leave that field 15, ask your crew what you could have done better. And I still remember doing games where somebody would come over and go, hey, can I give you some feedback? Of course, hopefully it's another referee, not a player or a parent, but, ask if you're the referee at halftime, ask your ARs, hey, what's going wrong? What's going good? What do I need to change for the second half versus sitting there at halftime and drinking water and eating a power bar? And then after the game, hey guys, what could I have done better, man? That game didn't feel so good. Or hey, that game felt great, but what do I need to work on for next time? Asking for feedback is, it opens the door to that being approachable thing. And even on the field, it does translate, because a player can come up to you and go, referee, you really missed that throw-in call. And if you've developed this lifestyle of, man, I'm approachable, I'm looking for feedback, I'm coachable, something I should have said at the top of the pod, but coachability, you can say to that player, hey man, I might have missed it. I'll get it next time.
I love that.
It's a mindset of being coachable that's helpful.
Yeah, I will just say, yeah, I don't care who I'm refereeing with, whether they're 13 years old and it's their first match, or they're 30 years old and they're at a very, very high level. I will still always ask, hey, do you have any feedback for me? You know, and I tell you, yesterday I was repping a low. I don't want to be disrespectful. It was an academy tournament, but come on, it was relatively low level U14 girls, and definitely I've reffed much higher matches than that. But as we're walking off the pitch at halftime, you know, I asked my crew, hey, do you have any feedback for me? Any questions for me? And he was like, yeah, can you help me understand such and such call? And there was a handball in the defensive third coming out, and they kicked the ball. The ball was kicked up into the other half of the field. And originally, the team that was going to get the free kick didn't have possession. It actually went to their opponent. And so I called the foul and blew it back and took it back in the defensive third. But if I had waited a couple more seconds, actually the defender kind of played it back to the keeper. They didn't play a great ball. Man, I could have just let advantage play out. I think the team that had received the foul in their favor would have much rather to be chasing down that goalkeeper who's trying to receive a bouncing ball to them, and they would have loved the position further up the field than a free kick just outside of their own 18. So I think there are things, it's wonderful. When you ask that question, he didn't understand the call. The parents didn't understand the call, why I made that call back there, because it was like a good, 3 or 4 seconds after the play. I was waiting to see if an advantage developed, but it got me thinking too, what should I have done in that scenario? And I think it's so important. You could always learn, you could always do better. As soon as you think you know everything, man, you become like the dumbest person in the room. There's always something you can do better. There's always little things you can improve upon. So being humble and staying open is so critical.
Well, and David, here I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Turning the tables.
Yeah.
Do you learn more from games where you feel like you did a pretty great job, or do you learn more from games that you made a few mistakes?
Absolutely. The ones that are challenging, the ones that have been difficult, they are great learning opportunities. And I've grown more as a referee because I've been in those difficult decisions, and I've made decisions that I regret, or that were really tough or really intense, whatnot. It's that classic, that what does not kill you makes you stronger. I don't wish to see referees struggle, but there's something that you gain through the struggle. There's a resilience, there's a knowledge, there's an experience that makes you better. And so I tell people, lean into that. It's not a bad thing.
And that's something I was going to mention before. I forgot, but referees who want to move up, I always say, hey, right now, if you're a grassroots referee, essentially nobody's really looking at you, right? No, you're not on anybody's radar yet. When you get to regional, obviously when you get to national, and you're on people's radar. And I always used to say you have a target on your back, but the target's a lot smaller when you're a newer referee. So I would say referee the most high level, craziest games you can. And I'm not saying go out and mess up games, but I'm saying referee those games without the fear, because you'll learn those things. You'll learn things on those games. And don't be worried about, if someone sees, because as you're starting out, someone's going to see you make mistakes. That's fine, but you're going to take those lessons, like you said, they will pay off years down the road. So don't be afraid of taking a game that you think it might be a little intimidated by. Man, I've never done an 18 boys game before, but first time for everything. Walk out with confidence and try. I find most times the fact that you're nervous means you care. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to do better than you think you would. But yeah, I mean, I'm still nervous before games. I think everybody, because I care.
Right.
I want to do good because I care about the players. I care about the game. I care about their safety. I don't want the game to go in the toilet,
I completely agree. Hey, I want to change things up a little bit here. I want to talk about your life off the pitch. So first and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about Umpiro and what that is and how it began and and what
I
it
know
can
it's
do
all
for
around
referees.
me
I know
here.
it's all around you, but I do want to just for a brief, because I think it's so cool. There's so many layers to us beyond the pitch. Very few of us do soccer full time as our only thing, and even those people who do it professionally have other things. But beyond being an entrepreneur and an inventor, you also have another career as well. So can you tell us about that? You know, what you do based in Nashville?
Sure. I'm a musician. That's the easiest way to say it. I'm sitting in a recording studio that's mine. Behind me is this stuff. And for a living, I sing and I write songs and I produce and mix other people's records.
Yeah, it's very cool. I've gotten to hang out in his studio, and it is just like so Nashville. It's such a wonderful
It's
thing.
very
But
Nashville.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that performance experience as a singer probably helps you as a referee as well, and vice versa.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Being on the stage and yeah, sort of learning how to act and put on a face. That's definitely helped.
Definitely.
Um, Definitely helped.
Well, let's
Made me
talk.
less afraid of people.
That's right. If you could get up on stage and sing, you could probably
Uh
get in the
huh.
middle of the pitch too. So let's talk a
Exactly.
little bit about Umpiro. I want to hear the story of how this began. You know, what were you experiencing as a referee to get you interested in creating Umpiro? And for those who do not know, Umpiro is a brand of footwear specifically made for referees. So take us back, if you don't mind, Leland. Where did the idea begin? What were you experiencing, and what did you set out to create?
Sure. It's an easy question. As referees, we uh, got to wear footwear, and ideally, we're trying to match our shoes to the surface that day. That's it. So, but when you travel, even when you're driving, of course, I was flying and still fly to games in college. You are packing and trying to pack light, and nobody wants to check a bag because that's the one the airlines lose, as we all know. So when I was traveling, I was bringing like a cleat, a trail runner, a flat, like a running shoe, just a flat running shoe. And then at least for years when I was flying to like USL games, we'd travel in a suit. So you'd be wearing dress shoes. So I'm having this bag packed with shoes, and then I have a jersey, a whistle, shorts, and socks, you know? So all that time I was thinking, man, why is there not? And I was always trying different types of shoes. I had my most success I had was with a trail shoe because of the way it gripped. It was rubber, so it helped with slipping. And then the way the trails, sort of those knobby, just not cleats because of the way the bottom doesn't move and they hurt. Anyone who's refed, a 3-game tournament in cleats on a Saturday, you feel that on Sunday morning. So but again, the problem with the turf shoe, not turf, trail shoe, which was my favorite, was that on the upper, it didn't look like a soccer shoe. So I was showing up to games in this whatever brand trail shoe. And we talked about earlier, when you arrive to the field, what are you wearing? And I remember having coaches look at me and going, "Oh, ref, nice kicks, mate." And I'm wearing this shoe that on the top looks like something a hiker wears. But I know that it's the best shoe for me. But again, it's that appearance thing. It's that perception, command presence. It's everything you can do that's controllable to when you show up to the field. How can you start off at the highest level? Start off at a 10 versus a 5 or a negative 10. A bunch of years ago, like 7 years ago, I started doing research into, man, could I create a shoe that has all the tread, sort of like a trail hybrid meets a turf cleat thing, but on the upper is a leather soccer shoe. And that's what I was able to create after years of. I actually brought some. I brought some souvenirs here. I'll ship them to you if you want. But basically, I had a friend, so I designed this outsole
Yeah, because I
because.
want to understand. I mean,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just going to jump in here for a second. So
please.
for those, so I've had some experience now developing products, but my products have been pretty simple. You know, scorecards, a whistle, a coin, or something in nature. I want you to talk through it briefly because I know there's so much to it, but actually
Mm-hmm.
developing a pair of athletic, high performance footwear from scratch and how challenging of a road that is. I mean, because this was not an overnight thing. You had an idea, and then a month later, you've got stock. I mean, this is a 6, 7 year development. So, like, what are
Yeah.
some of those steps you go through, if you don't mind just sharing where you start and how you got to the product you have today?
Great question. Anyone who's out there, you yourself know, and we actually have spoken about it the other night when we had dinner. You know, call it the entrepreneurial spirit, but it has its challenges. Um, Not only the, I guess, call it logistical challenges of like, man, how am I going to make this thing? And there's other challenges like I'm trying to break into a market where something already exists. There are already shoes. But what are you doing differently that makes yours superior? Or there's no point in doing it. So the first thing I did was conceptualize this outsole. And I had a friend who I brought these things with me. I brought them with me. They're here at the studio. But I conceptualized this outsole, and a friend of mine had a 3D printer. So he goes, man, I could probably print these things. So my first thought was like, I wonder if I could make an outsole, cut it off of a soccer shoe, like a cleat, and then glue it on. So we made this outsole. It's giant. But it's this was the design. So it was like a trail, sort of muddy, grippy thing in the back that would be these tall cleats. And then on the front, sort of a turf cleat where the ball of your foot is to increase acceleration on your step. That's the idea. So we printed that with 3D. And then we were like, well, man, that thing was way too stiff. So we printed different fill weights. These are little minis to test fill weights of the 3D printing, because that was our first thing. We were like, man, we're going to glue these onto shoes and prove the concept. And then maybe take that concept to a bigger shoe manufacturer and go, hey, look, could you make these? So these are different fill weights where you get different flexibility. Interesting. So then I found a factory that was going to make a prototype. They made one. Now this was a prototype. Now the bottom wasn't.
And for those who are not watching the video, so we're on a web call, so I'm watching him. So if you do want to head over to YouTube and look up this conversation on YouTube, you can see Leland showing me the examples of all these different pieces. But he's got a sample in his hand, one of the early prototypes that he's made.
Yes, great. I'm glad I did my hair today for this, knowing it's on YouTube now. Yeah. So yeah, this is not the outsole, obviously, but to create a custom outsole, you do what's called an open mold, which is actually a cast that they pour, in my case, rubber into, that makes this custom one-of-a-kind thing. So this is a prototype. We didn't do the open mold yet, but this was a fly knit upper shoe we did with this sort of rubber support for lateral movement, not only as a referee, but obviously as assistant referee. So this was an experiment, but the support laterally wasn't enough in this, so we decided to go with the leather. This is the first prototype. This has our custom outsole. We did an open mold for this. This was my size because I actually wore these and did several games, 4 or 5 years ago. The shoe brand had a different name. It wasn't Umpiro. It was called Volo. Which this is a V, not a U. We had different colors. It's a different shoe. We did all of that and tested again. This again was modified. I've got a pair of white ones here. So this is the current model. You can see there's subtle differences in the tread. Anyway, so it was a whole thing. But
we're talking years. I mean, that's the thing. That's
years.
So you spent
probably 7 years
right.
total from concept to having our first, which we went on sale in 2023.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking.
So we've only been on sale maybe a year and almost 2 years now.
Yeah. So I mean, thousands upon thousands of dollars. Months upon months in between prototypes. Years of, and literally blood, sweat, and tears that you're.
Well, and traveling internationally, because, right. The first thing I wanted to do was make it here in America.
Yeah.
But you can't. There's no independent shoe manufacturers. That's a goal of mine eventually. I would love if I could put made in the USA on our packaging. But I had to travel to factories internationally. I traveled to Mexico. I traveled to across the world to Hong Kong. Because I wasn't I wanted to do my due diligence. I needed to go see where these shoes were being made. I needed to check the quality of this stuff. I wanted to see, frankly, I wanted to see whether there's a good working environment. We've heard horror stories of where brands are made, and, we all know what surrounds those stories. I don't need to go into it, but I didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to make a quality product, even if it cost me more, even if there was less profit in the end, to solve a problem for referees, but not have to worry about, oh gosh, I hope they don't find out that my factory, the working conditions are terrible. So again, I've been to these places many times. We have a product that is quality, that it just took time to develop.
Yeah, I want to ask about that. Can we talk about, so we talk about a shoe for referees. So what is it about the physical and functional demands of a referee's role in a match that you're designing for, as opposed to, again, a soccer cleat or what a trail runner, or just like, a running shoe? What is it specifically that you were trying to design for into the shoes that are now the Umpiros?
One of the demands is that players typically are playing for a game a day, and maybe in a tournament they're playing 2 games a day. Referees, for the most part, we know, are doing upwards of 4, 5, I've heard more than that, games a day. A cleat outsole, the outsole is the bottom part of the shoe. For those who aren't watching, I'm pointing to it on the Umpiro. The cleat's outsole, traditional cleat, is plastic, thick, and unyielding as far as movement. And one of my friends and advisors is a doctor of orthopedic surgeon. He was a U.S. Olympic team doctor, Dr. Ben Jackson. And he's been a good buddy that I can always call and ask questions about. And I did when we were designing this shoe. Like, hey, does your foot need to flex? Why is this important? Where do you need support, actually? So getting away from just breaking the traditional mold, no pun intended, but creating a shoe with this rubber outsole that flexes. That's the key, one of the keys. So it flexes, and your foot can move, which helps your body from all the way from your foot to the top of your head, shoulders, back, everything. And I can't say I'm not a doctor, but I do have people messaging me saying, hey, man, I used to have shin splints. Man, I have plantar fasciitis. These shoes helped. So people have told me that. I cannot say on this podcast, oh, medically, these are better. We are working on that, though. So it solves a problem of a referee doing multiple games. It also solves a problem of a referee who travels to games and doesn't want to bring, like I said, 4 or 5 different pairs of shoes because they don't know. You can have a team email you, hey, tomorrow we're playing on our turf field. You show up, oh, turf field's under construction, or the grade wasn't set right, so now it's wet, so now they're moving to their grass practice field, but you brought a flat because it was supposed to be a dry, sunny day. Oops, now it rained, and now you're slipping all over wearing a flat because you just brought your running shoe. So this feels like a running shoe, is as comfortable as a running shoe, but grips like a cleat. And if people want to go to our Instagram, there's a video where we take Brooke, World Cup assistant referee, and Brooke, we do a side-by-side. She's running in an Umpiro. She does a 20-yard shuttle run. She stops. We side-by-side with a running shoe. She slips like off the camera screen almost, and then we do it in a cleat. The cleat and the Umpiro stop right on a dime. So my point is, if you could have the grip of a cleat, why would you not have the comfort of a running shoe? The other problem it solves is, again, to a running shoe. A running shoe on the top, you don't look like you belong in the sport of soccer. And we're so used to seeing it, referees wearing a running shoe, but you don't look like the players. And coming back to what I said long time ago, if you're wanting to warm up like the players, you show up early like the players, you match prep like the players, you study the teams because the players are doing it. So again, how can you control, do I look like a player? Do I look like an athlete? So that's why we have this leather upper. And the leather upper was just more supportive in lateral movement. I had a lot of feedback. I sent like prototypes all over the country to friends that are top level refs. And I said, hey, just rip this thing apart. Tell me what's wrong with it. And, we finally got to our production model. That was our Gen 1 shoe. And then we developed even more to our Gen 2 shoe, which I'll lightly touch on. The information is on our Instagram. I don't need to, I'd love to talk about it, but the Gen 2 shoe, we just made it better. The inside is synthetic. It's a synthetic liner, so it's lighter, especially when it gets wet. The insole is removable, so this thing pops out really easily. So you can put, if you do have like a custom orthotic, you can throw that in there. We actually hardened the outsole rubber by 5%, so it will last a little bit longer before these sort of nubs wear down. We supported inside, we supported these athletic stress points on the toe box that always tear in our favorite shoes. So these are more sturdy. There's a couple other things anyway. We reinforced the lace eyelets, but anyway, that's Gen 2. So the point is, I tried to solve a problem that I had as a referee, and it turns out it's a problem a lot of other referees have. And so that's what our shoe does.
That's so cool. So I know also, as a referee, we face criticism and stresses on and off the field. How do you think like the Umpiros can help improve a referee's confidence, whether it's their confidence in their performance, like physical performance, but also confidence again in that whole presence on the pitch?
I don't think you can referee great if you don't feel great.
Ooh.
And I mean physically. I'm sure we've all been out on the field and you're warming up and somebody's like, "Ooh, I'm not feeling so good. My knees are tight. My back hurts."
Or
it's
if you
brutal.
feel like you're going to slip and slide. I mean, there's nothing worse than you're worried about, I'm going to slip, I'm going to tear something, I'm going to pull something,
100%.
whatnot. If you're
Or
sliding
I've
on
been in a
steps.
game. I had a game, a USL game, and as we're warming up, this was before I had these shoes, and I had warmed up in a turf shoe. And as we're warming up, the sprinklers come on, and I slip during the warm up. And I didn't injure myself, but I said to the guys, "Hey, I got to go change real quick," and went into the locker room and put on cleats. At the time, I didn't have these, but there's a mentality of like, I am prepared for this game. How can you be confident if you're not prepared and you don't feel prepared? So these help me, and supposedly others who've told me it does, help them feel prepared, because they're walking out to the field and they know, man, my feet are going to be right under me this whole time. I had text messages, multiple, but one of my favorites is a referee said, "Man, I had a high school game tonight. It was raining. Players were slipping all over the place, and I was steady on my feet the whole 90 minutes because of these shoes," which is amazing. It's incredible to get feedback like that.
Yeah, no, it's actually really cool. I've had the experience wearing the Umpiros on a turf field. Okay, so not all players, have multiple sets of cleats that they wear. Like they got one set of cleats. Well, on a lot of turf fields, those fields either don't have enough depth to the turf, that it almost feels like, even though it kind of looks like grass, it feels like you're running on concrete. And so,
Yes.
and
because underneath those little rubber balls is concrete.
That's right. And I've had it when, I put on cleats, it feels like you're running on stilts out there. Like you really don't feel connected. And it's nice when you've got something that's really made for that type of environment that feels more like a turf shoe. You got grip and you feel connected to the ground. And it's a really big deal, whether you're a referee in the middle or an AR. Let me tell you, I have bid it as an AR. Like you're running down the pitch following like plays, someone scores and you immediately stop to try and turn and run back up to the pitch. Whoop!
Well, and I remember the first time I did a game in the prototype, and it was a ACC game.
Yeah.
And I remember first game in the shoes, and it's the test shoes prototypes, and it started raining. There was a mist on the field, and I'm like, okay, today's the day. We're gonna find out. And I'm wearing the first Umpiros, and I was running, and this player had to cut across in front of me, and I was at a full sprint. And I remember stopping. I didn't think about, oh man, I hope these shoes grip. But man, I remember when I stopped going, oh, wow. And the player ran right in front of me to go, cut across and get a ball. And I remember thinking, man, I really have something here, because I stopped on a dime in the rain on a field with wet on top of it. Yeah. So it was a really big, at least confidence booster for me, representing this brand, knowing, man, these are great.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, as a middle-aged man, and I can say that confidently now as I enter my 50th year,
Hey.
I tell you, I worry about falling. And I worry about my knees. I worry about my ankles. I worry about just slipping quickly and all of a sudden I've pulled a groin muscle or something like that, or a hammy, you name it. So like what I like now is I feel a lot more confident when I'm out there that I'm going to be able to control my motion, and it gives me a greater feeling so that I can, or feeling that I can perform and do what I want to do on the pitch and not have to be worried about sliding around out there and potentially hurting myself. Well, Leland, I got one last question for you before we wrap things up. I mean, I love this idea of referee specific innovation, and that you're creating, as a referee, you've created something for referees. I just want to ask, like, how do you feel now that you're creating something that is helping improve the lives of referees? How do you feel about that?
If it helps referees, it's incredible. And it seems to be doing that. It's incredible. I don't know what to say. I think we all like find little problems, and we find these little hacks that work for us. I remember when I was conceptualizing, like, man, can I make a shoe? Which we briefly touched on, the crazy, journey that was. I was really just trying to solve a problem for myself, and then talking to other referees and people going, yeah, man, I have problems with that too, or my feet hurt. The real reward is when I get pictures sent to me like, hey, are those your shoes? This ref is doing my kid's game. That's huge. And I, my goal beyond the shoes, I know you didn't ask this, but my goal is that we're able to stop a referee from having long-term pain, which we're working on data, and we're going to do a study just in the planning stages of it now, but where I want to see if we can compare things like injury rates with cleats and injury rates with a running shoe or an Umpiro, because it's my belief that this shoe functions as well as a cleat, and we show it on video again side by side with the World Cup official. So the problem solving goes more into, can we help referees have longer careers without hurting themselves in a cleat that's not made to be in all day and do a bunch of games.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
No, man. Well, I know we talked the other night, but you sent me something that I loved. It was like, all grip, no gripe. It's like, we shouldn't have to suffer out there, to be able to do our job. Well, Leland, I sincerely appreciate what you've done. I honestly, I have so much respect for the entrepreneurs out there who are creating, products for people trying to solve problems. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us today on the Refs Need Love To podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Hey, one last question, man. Where can people buy Umpiros?
Super complicated. Umpiro.com.
Umpiro.com.
That's it.
That's also, it's also available, should we say, on Official Sports as well. So if
correct.
You buy,
Official Sports is our official distributor. Yeah. So if they go to Umpiro.com and click the Buy Now button, it'll link you to OSI.
Yes, and so just to help everyone out there, if you're interested in Umpiros, use the code RefsNeedLove2 and you will get 10% off. So by the way, guys, I think these shoes are a deal at where they're currently priced. I've told Leland a number of times that he's underpricing them. So get them while they're low priced as is. And you can also get 10% off if you use the code RefsNeedLove2. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's pod. Entrepreneurs and small business owners are the lifeblood of our economy and our community. We should be supporting the people who care about us and are willing to invest in us by creating products that improve our lives. I'm not against Amazon or other big box retailers, but they also have some serious negative consequences to our society and our most marginalized communities. Support a local business and a fellow referee like Leland. He deserves it, and his product is phenomenal. Also, please check out the Refs Need Love To store online. Check out my fun referee socks. They are so cool. And if you are going back to the office 5 days a week like a lot of people, you might as well be rocking some fun socks to make your day a little bit brighter. You will not find them anywhere else. And again, everything gets poured back into making this channel possible. I wish you all the best, and I hope your next match is red card free.